Hello everybody, myself Sarup Bag. I am a faculty member in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, IIT Guwahati. Normally, I teach the Manufacturing Science and Engineering in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. So, my area of work is mainly science and engineering of different welding processes or welding technologies. So, in view of that, this time I am trying to float the courses like advances in welding and joining technology. So, the word advances is used in the sense that the course coverage will be from the very basic or very fundamental to the advanced level of a different welding and joining scenario in the current based on that current industrial practice, as well as the research trend specific to this area. So, if we look into that the course structure, here I am trying to design the structure in such a way such that presentation of the matter, subject matter will be tried to in a very easy way, a lucid manner, such that the wide variety of audience can takes this advantage to learn the subject. At the same time, along with the different modules, there is some assignment problem also, and that assignment will try to strengthen the knowledge of this subject. And definitely the target of these courses is to the mainly for the industrial people and who is supposed to work in this area or maybe new in this area, that is in the area of welding and joining different technologies, and what is the current advancement is going on around related to this subject. That will be the total coverage of the subject, and based on that I have defined different modules. So, if you look into the modules, here first we will try to cover the fundamentals of welding and joining, the very fundamental basis. Then with the mostly used and more precisely used, that is the laser and electron beam welding process. You know that there is a wide application of the laser, but very specific application of the welding will be coverage by the laser and electron beam welding. Then solid state welding process. So, that means this process is limited, that temperature range is below melting point temperature, and what are the different development of the welding technologies in this area. I will try to cover this under this module. Then computational welding mechanics. So, apart from some practical knowledge also, how we can do some simple calculation related to welding process, so that estimation of the power requirement, heat transfer and how to solve the different problems in the welding process, specifically in the light of heat transfer, any welding and residual stress development and prediction of that. So, from that point of view, the welding computational mechanics of welding process has been covered here. Then one of the main thrust area now in the application of the welding in a very micro scale. So, from that basis, micro joining and nano joining and development of these technologies in the and application of this specifically in the medical industry, I have tried to cover in this area, that micro joining and nano joining processes. And then welding metallurgy also. So, there is some idea about the microstructure and different heat treatment process and solidification process related to the welding, and basic fundamentals understanding on this ground will be coverage area in the welding metallurgy module. Then welding and joining, another subgroup of joining of the non-metals. Here I have tried to focus on the apart from the metallic material, what are the different non-metallic material can also be welded, and the different technology, existing technology, and what are the different methodology till now we are using, we will try to cover in that area. And then finally, metal transfer, which is very significant nowadays, that is metal transfer in welding process, and how this metal transfers can be linked with the metal printing technology, which is, or maybe you can say the metal additive technology. That will be the broad coverage area at the last module. So, overall we can see there is a wide coverage area in this subject, and if we look into the very specific, that I am trying to look into the point wise, that means physics of welding, different welding processes, effect of surface active elements, keyhole formation, and then hybrid welding processes. Then in terms of the computational welding methods, what are the different welding heat source, fluid flow analysis, associated stress strain in the welding process, then microelectrics, wire bonding mechanism, laser micro welding, electron beam micro welding, or maybe development in the micro welding processes, then residual stress, solidification in the welding process, phase transformation effect, different heat treatment related to the welding processes, and finally plastic welding, glass and ceramic welding, and then finally fundamentals of the metal transfer in the arc welding process, cold metal transfer, and introduction to metal pitting. So, these are the typical keywords that I will try to cover in this subject. So, if you look into the references also, that is the there is no prerequisite for these courses, but for the better knowledge or maybe understanding of this process, you can follow certain references that I have listed down some references, though each and every references try to cover in the separate module. So, finally, I can say that hopefully this course will be enjoyable to the beginners as well as who wants to know about the advanced levels of this subject. They will also be benefited with this course, and because the presentation and this course will be in a very simplified way, such that different background people can understand this subject. So, thank you very much for your kind attention.